Okay, so yesterday I recorded a video and I did it in the car on the way to see some friends. Yesterday was just one of those like all over the place busy days. And then when I went to look at the video to edit it and post it, I found out that Kidlet had been leaning over and so he was in the frame the whole time, so I had to throw out the whole video. Kidlet! I'd love to say that parenting is always a bed of roses and a bowl of cherries, but no. So that's why this video is going up a day late. This is Saturday's video going up on Sunday. This is actually a video response to IJethrobot, who's linked down there. And he posted a video response to my video. So it's a response to a video on shaping communities. So, hi Jethro! He actually brought up a lot of really good points and had some really interesting questions and some really neat ideas. And there was one thing in particular that he brought up that I wanted to talk about today, which is that sometimes we can shape our environment and sometimes it's better to get while the getting's good. And I agree with that, actually. There are definitely some instances in which case you're better to just leave a situation. Like, for example, if you're in an abusive relationship, especially a physically abusive relationship, I think that's a dangerous situation. There's no reason for you to tolerate it, and you should just go. That's definitely a situation that counseling isn't something that you have time for. It's not an easy thing to change, and I don't think that's the kind of thing that, certainly if I were in that situation, I would try to change. Just leave and don't look back. And I know that that's hard to do, and it's hard to sometimes even contemplate for all kinds of reasons to do with being alone and starting over and being just generally scared. But it's possible, and there are friends and there are organizations and there are shelters and there are places you can go and people who can help you to get out of it. Jethro, you also talked about grad school, and I can totally relate to that. I left college after 3 years because I got a couple weeks into my senior year and it just felt like I wasn't going to get out of it what I wanted to get out of it. It felt like I was going to be spending a year there just to get a piece of paper. I don't do things just to get the piece of paper. A lot of people do, and I think that's fine, but that's not me. And it's not necessarily a thing that you can just change either. You know, if you're in college or if you're in grad school, maybe you can talk to your professor about changing the project you're working on or readjusting things, but sometimes you can't. And, you know, sometimes it's just a situation where that's the way the institution is set up, and you either do things that way or you don't, and you either like it and feel that you've gotten a lot out of it or you don't. I got a ton out of my first 3 years of college, but at the end of 3 years, I felt like I was done. I think that's a very personal decision that you have to make on a case-by-case basis. It's not the kind of, yes, everybody band together and change the college. It doesn't work like that. But in terms of communities and shaping communities, I think there is something you can do. I mean, unless you're living somewhere like Agloe, New York with like one general store and a house. Yeah, there's not a lot you can do there with 2 people. But you know, if you're living anywhere else, you're probably not the only person who feels like, I wish there were more performance spaces, or I wish there was more art, or I wish there was more theater, or I wish there was more culture, or I wish there were more bookstores. I think the thing is to realize that most people who don't live in big city probably feel the way you feel. If you're living in a place, then you're probably not the only one feeling like, I wish there was more good stuff going on. And so I think the thing is that if you start talking about what you want, all the other people who feel the same way start to come out of the woodwork. If you are the one who sits on your porch once in a while and strums on the guitar, the other people who like that kind of thing find you. And if you're the person who's always reading a book, the other people who like to read books will lean over and say, hey, what are you reading? That looks really interesting. When it comes to shaping our communities, it's about being what you want the community to be, openly and honestly and publicly, so that all the other people who feel the same way but are maybe just not ready to say so or do anything about it on their own start to come out of the woodwork. And then you start to find a community of people who feel the same way that you do. You find a community of people who also love going to the theater, or who also love dance, or who also love books. Then as a group, you can start to do something. You can say, I've got a big yard, let's put on a free production for the neighborhood. Or I've got a big space in my basement, let's start having dance classes. I've got a bunch of spare books, let's start arranging a book exchange. When we think about shaping our communities, I think we tend to think really big, and I think that's awesome, and I think it's amazing. You should definitely think big. As important as it is to think big, if we think too big from the very beginning, then we just feel exhausted and like it's biting off more than we can chew and like we can't do it. So I think it's really important to start small. Find ways that as individuals we can slowly and gently expand the sphere of creative people. And so that's what I'm talking about. So one of the things that I'm doing is starting a writing circle, an in-person writing circle. I have a couple online writing circles, but that's online and it's not the same thing as meeting in person. So and you know, maybe we can go write together and have like writing dates at the cafe or something. When I find out about local events like people playing music somewhere or that kind of thing, I try to go. When I find out about people who are going to be in local productions, I go and I try to bring people with me. So I think those are some little steps. I have some other ideas, but I'm gonna vlog them later, so you'll find out as the year goes by. I hope that answers some of your question, Jethro. I kind of rambled a little bit, but there will be more, don't worry. And I really appreciate your video response. That was awesome. Thanks for watching. I've had a video response!